and welcome to Telewizja Republika. Tavarish Ivan, you got any S-34s? Not too many? How about A-50s? Oh, not good. When we were checking today in the morning, preparing for the show, we've heard about one Su-34 that was shot down. But as the day followed, the news broke that another one is downed by the Ukrainian Air Force. Actually, Ukrainian Air Force successfully downed at least 10 advanced fighter jets within the span of last 10 days, demonstrating a significant operational achievement despite facing a shortage of high-grade munitions. The aircrafts that were shot down were Sukhoi Su-34 fighter bombers and two Sukhoi Su-35 air superiority fighters, according to the official claims, marking a considerable loss for the Russian Air Force. These incidents highlight Ukraine's effective use of its limited resources, particularly the US-made Patriot air defense missiles, known for their 90-mile range and high accuracy. The initial engagement saw the destruction of 3 Sukhoi aircraft as they were reportedly preparing for a glide bombing mission 60 miles east of A-50 in eastern Ukraine. This operation suggests Ukraine's proactive defense posture and its capability to challenge Russian air superiority in strategically important regions. The subsequent downings occurred over the following 2 or actually 3 days, including incidents over the Sea of Azov, indicating the geographic spread of Ukraine's defense actions. Ukraine's successful interceptions are attributed to the strategic deployment of Patriot PAC-2 missile batteries, which Ukraine acquired from the United States and Germany. These batteries have been stationed in key locations, including Kyiv and in southern and eastern Ukraine, providing a broad defensive coverage against aerial threats. The truck-mounted launchers of these batteries offer mobility and flexibility, allowing Ukrainian forces to adapt to challenging operational requirements and to maintain a defensive stance against Russian air operations. The loss rate of those in total 10 jets in such a short period is unusual and unsustainable for any air force, including Russia's. Prior to these events, the Russian Air Force has already lost a portion of its Su-34s and Su-35 fleet over 2 years of conflict. The continuation of such losses, especially considering the additional impact on experienced aircrew availability, could significantly challenge Russian air operational capabilities. However, the Russians always can throw some more bodies on the ground. Despite the high effectiveness of Ukraine's air defenses, as demonstrated, concerns about the sustainability of such defenses' success remain, given the limited stockpile of Patriot missiles and the broader context of munitions shortages facing Ukraine. Kirill Budanov, the chief of Ukraine's defense intelligence, has recently highlighted a significant vulnerability in Russian aerial surveillance capabilities following downing of another Russian A-50 airborne warning and control system, as we would call it on the NATO side, AWACS, aircraft by Ukrainian air forces. On February 23, 2024, Russia's ability to maintain continuous aerial surveillance has been severely compromised by another incident of this kind. According to Budanov, with only 6 A-50 planes remaining in Russia's arsenal, the loss of another would render the Russian military unable to sustain round-the-clock operations of this crucial surveillance aircraft. The A-50 plays a pivotal role in Russia's defense strategy, serving as the eyes in the sky for ground and air units by providing advanced radar surveillance and command and control support. These aircraft are essential for detecting and tracking enemy aircraft, guiding fighters, and monitoring the battlefield situation from a safe distance. Well, safe. It's a relative matter. Budanov revealed that the operation of target the A-50 was meticulously prepared over several weeks emphasizing that the timing was determined by the opportunity to engage the aircraft rather than a specific date. This strategic approach underscores the significance of the A-50 to Russian military operations and the impact of its loss on their aerial capabilities. The successful downing of A-50, or actually A-50s, was achieved using a Soviet-era S-200 surface-to-air missile system, showcasing the effectiveness of existing Ukrainian defense systems against sophisticated Russian military assets by the assets that were produced by the Soviet Union technologies that Ukraine is still using. The strike not only resulted in the loss of the aircraft, but also loss of a crew of 10 Russians, marking a significant blow to Russian surveillance operation. In the aftermath of the incident, 5 more Russian aircrafts were reportedly withdrawn from combat operations, indicating a cautious response from the Russian military to protect its remaining A-50 fleet. Well, I wouldn't call it Russian style. Normally, they would just throw next to the same places with the same results. This development has strategic implications for the ongoing conflict, as it highlights the vulnerabilities in Russia's military infrastructure and the potential for significant operational limitations should further losses occur. It's not that we are worried about that. Frankly, we would really love to see more events of this kind. You can join us on rachon.com, that's our website. You can leave us your email. We will get back to you with our daily reports on the significant events, on the front lines, various front lines of the ongoing war against the West that we try to report and follow on a daily basis. Because that's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Michał Rachoń. This is Rachoń. And we roll in.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
And tonight, to talk about this air disaster, at least from the standpoint of Russia, is Colonel Jeffrey Fischer, 30 years in the aviation military business. Welcome back to Telewizja Republika. Jeff, when we started preparing our program today, we've heard about 9 or 8 Su-34s that were destroyed by the Ukrainian air defense. Now, when I read the online reports of Ukrainian air defense, they claim that they shot down 10 Su-34s in last 10 days. Well, it doesn't seem like a thing that is happening every day. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so it's great to be on your show again, Rock. And look, it's interesting. I think as we approach getting F-16s into theater, I think you're going to see a lot of efforts by Ukraine to set conditions to maximize the effect of the F-16, right? And that means mitigating or removing any kind of ground-based or air-based threat or defense systems, so that the F-16s have a little bit more freedom of maneuver and have some capability. So it's not surprising to me that this is happening. I mean, this on top of the 2 A-50s that have been shot down, along with some other ground-based air defense systems that are being destroyed. So this is in line with the Ukrainians expecting the arrival of the F-16.
So, as far as I understand it, you see it as a kind of clearing the perimeter for the F-16s to be operational and safer in a way.
Exactly. I think whether you're in the business of warfare or in the business of any kind of commercial entity, right? If strategically you're going to bring on something of the magnitude of a new fighter jet into your domain, you're going to do everything you can to kind of maximize the effect of it. In the case of war, it's to try and advance in combat. If it's commercial, it's to maximize your profits. So again, I think this makes sense, right?
Jeff, so what are those Su-34s? We, of course, many of us heard the code name or this abbreviation, which is basically one of the Russian fighters. But why exactly those Su-34s seem to be on the target list of Ukraine right now?
It's a good question, right? I think the number one reason they're on the target list is because that's what Russia's flying into the airspace, right? So if you fly it into the Ukrainian airspace, we're going to shoot it. It's if they were shooting, if Russia was flying Su-27s or MiG-29s in, these would also be the ones being hit. I mean, unfortunately, Ukraine doesn't get to pick which airplanes Russia flies. But at the end of the day, whatever is going into the airspace that Ukraine can reach out and touch it's what they're going to hit.
Okay, so it's more about what Russia is using than the particular choice from the menu of things available over the Ukrainian airspace. Okay, but this is not the only good info from the perspective of collective West. We've heard since we've seen each other 2 weeks ago, another A-50s are down. According to the head of the military intelligence of Ukraine, General Budanov, Russia will not be able to operate on a daily basis those eyes in the skies. Again, what does it mean for a military to lose such a big number of this kind of aircrafts in such a short time?
Yeah, when you look at the war that's going on in Ukraine, it's almost a dichotomy, right? You've got an air domain and a sea domain in which Ukraine is doing outstandingly well, without a navy, by the way, right? So they're destroying the Russian Black Sea Fleet. About a third of it's gone, and they've knocked out 2 airplanes that, to be quite fair, if the United States or any NATO ally had lost an AWACS in air combat, there would be like congressional hearings. You'd see the Secretary of Defense most likely being resigned. You'd see some serious uproar within the senior leadership of the military, because you just don't lose these types of airplanes, right? These are called high-value airborne assets, or HAVA, HVAA for short. You protect them with everything you have. There are very few, and the contribution that they give to you in warfare is unmatched and unsurpassed. So you protect them with with everything you have. Now Russia's lost 2. Right, so it's unbelievable, and you have this again. I want to be clear. There's some serious issues for Ukraine in the land warfare area, and I will tell you those are being exacerbated. But from an air domain perspective, I think Ukraine's doing quite well. As you point out to your viewers, and you're right, very astute, is that the eyes and ears, that ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, that helps those fighter aircraft build an air picture and build situational awareness, is gone. It's going to be up to the Russian pilots to build their own situational awareness in the cockpit, where Ukrainian pilots are going to have the luxury of ISR assets building their air picture without them turning on their own radars. It's a massive advantage.
Jeff, what do you mean by saying that when a certain military has this kind of asset, it protects this kind of asset, this kind of aircraft with everything this military has? How do you protect an aircraft that is flying over the territory, which is basically a contested airspace in the war zone? How do you protect an asset of that kind?
Sure. So the first thing is you rely on your intelligence to ensure that you have some idea where the enemy ground-based air defense systems are, right? You don't fly within a known threat ring with these types of airplanes. So that's the first thing on the ground. The second thing is you actually do a lot of tactics, techniques, and procedures, and I won't go into what those are, right? On should you have made a mistake from an intel perspective, how do you maximize defensive maneuvers for these airplanes to protect them? And then the last thing you do is you actually have what's called a CAP, or combat air patrol, of your own fighters that don't go into war, but basically just anchor themselves in and around these high-value airborne assets. Number one, to shoot down inbound missiles should they come, or to chase off and fend off any fighters that would try and come in. And in a worst-case situation, put themselves in between a missile and the high-value airborne asset, and basically, mean, I hate to say it because war's ugly, but take one for the team and they, basically get shot down to protect the other airplane. It's far easier for the United States to build a new F-22 or build a new F-35 than it is to build a brand new E-3 or an RC-135 or an EC-130H or any of these other ridiculously limited, expensive, high-value assets.
And that's the same, I assume the same goes for Russia, for them building this kind of asset and aircraft that can watch the airspace in I assume in the range of hundreds of kilometers is such a great effort that it's worth protecting it in this way. But it seems that at least in one case of downing of this aircraft, that kind of thing didn't happen. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have ever seen almost online report from downing of such an aircraft. We've seen flares coming off this aircraft according to the data leaked and published online. And allegedly, we've seen this kind of aircraft going down actually online. What do you make of those rare videos?
Yeah, so look, the video is somewhat challenging to watch, especially if you're an aviator who flew a high-value airborne asset, because you kind of know what was going through the aircrew's mind.
Yeah, you spent maybe, if our viewers do not know this, Jeff spent years in that kind of aircraft on U.S. side of this long-standing.
So I used to fly in what was called an EA6B, which wasn't necessarily a fully high-value airborne asset, but an EC-130H Compass Call, which was, I mean, it's a C-130 airframe. There's not ejection seats in it, and you are flying relatively close to the battle space doing some combat operations, realizing that you're susceptible to the enemy air. But again, there's tactics, techniques, and procedures to protect you. So when I watched that video, though, right, here's the first thing I noticed, right? They're, as you said, they're pumping out expendables. You can see the flares, right, because they're very visible. But at night, you don't see the chaff or the little pieces of metal that try and deceive radar. Right? You don't see those, but they're most likely they're being pumped out. And they're doing this for at least 45 seconds in the video. And what that tells me is the crew knew they were being targeted, because you don't just push these buttons and pump this stuff out for no reason, right? Because it highlights where you are in effect. And it kind of gives away your location in the air. If you're a ground-based air defense guy and you see that, you put together all the dots in the sky and you kind of know, well, the airplane's probably going to be right there. And you don't like to give away your position like that, right? So something monumental is tracking on them for a very long time. That kind of disrupts the idea that Russia says that we shot down our own airplane, because it only takes about anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds for a ground-based air defense system to shoot down an airplane on its own side. It takes a good 45 seconds to maybe up to a minute and a half, depending on how far away the threat is, right, for that long-range missile to fly out its time and strike. So clearly something from a long range away had locked them up and was targeting them with either an illuminator, a missile guidance system, or just a target tracker, enough to scare the air crew into dumping out their chaff and flare buckets to protect themselves as last-ditch maneuvers.
So that means, correct me if I'm wrong, that today technology, no matter on which side of this contemporary Cold War someone is, the current technology gives the pilot awareness of the fact that he is being locked in terms of the radar weapons or other illumination, laser illumination devices. So basically the crew knew that it is being targeted by enemy. Is that right?
Sure, right. So most military aircraft today, whichever side you're on, has a system called a radar warning receiver. And it's basically a receiver group of antennas that is out there sniffing the electromagnetic spectrum for specific threat radar systems. And there's an emitter library base, and basically when it sees a transmission out there, it compares it to its library base and basically says, oh my gosh, this is a S-200 threat, for example, and we know that it's basically at about 10 o'clock off of our nose. So I'm going to let the pilot know with an audible system as well as an indication on almost looks like a clock, right? Hey, here's this type of threat, and it's coming at you from this direction.
Okay,
and
so
it will tell the pilot that.
what, except the things that we saw probably happen, so throwing up the flares and other systems, what else can a pilot of this kind of aircraft do? I mean, the difference in speed, I assume, is so huge that maneuvering is not an option here. So are there any other, if you don't have, as you mentioned, a jet fighter that is going to place itself between you and the rocket?
Yeah, so very clearly, I won't divulge what the tactics would be from a flying perspective on how to defeat these things, because it's classified, and frankly, I have a lot of friends who still fly these airplanes, so I'm not going to give that away, right? But I will say this, right? I think this is important. The United States Air Force, as well as the United States Navy Flying Force, right, the Naval Air Force, spends an inordinate amount of time practicing and to prepare to be able to counter Russian-based and Chinese-based missile systems, right? When we do our exercises, these are the things we go against because we know these are what threats exist in the world that will try and kill us. That makes sense. What I think it's important for the audience to realize, though, is I don't know how many Russian pilots have actually prepared to go against their own missiles, right? I never.
Yeah, that's
again,
my next question.
Right. When I trained, I didn't prepare to go against a Patriot missile battery because I shouldn't have to. If a
Yeah, you got them on your side.
Yeah, it's on my side. It's hard enough for me to remember all the tactics against the missiles the Russians have, let alone try to remember tactics, techniques, and procedures against the ones that we have. So I don't necessarily fault the Russian crew, right, for not reacting a way that I think they should have reacted against this. I don't know if they've ever practiced and trained against it.
That's very interesting because actually this is one of the features of the war that we are discussing, leaving aside all the new technologies, all the drone technologies, the naval drones that we very often talk about. But this is another aspect, and this is very interesting from the perspective of me, a citizen of state that used to be a part of Warsaw Pact in Soviet prison, so to say, because Ukraine is using devices that were in Russian stockpiles, and according to the information available, this particular plane was shot down by S-200. We got S-200s, we got S-300s, S-400s. My basic understanding is that this is a certain level of sophistication of those weapon systems. Does it mean that S-200 is less sophisticated than S-300 and the S-300 is less sophisticated than S-400, or that's not the case? Because we've just received the information that the S-200 were the means by which this aircraft was shot down.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm very happy that Poland got parole from communist prison, and I'm very happy you guys joined NATO. I love having you as an ally. But you're right? These numbers correspond to basically the technological advancements within the missile systems. The one caveat I'll say to that, though, is the S-200 was specifically designed to do something that other missile systems aren't necessarily designed to do, right? And that was the S-200 was going to be this extremely long-range missile system, because if you look at the missile, it looks like a flying telephone pole, right? I mean, it's massive. It was going to have a very long-range capability and initially Russia wanted to be able to strike any kind of inbound B-52 or anything from a really, really long way away. We're talking on the order, if you look at Wikipedia, on the order of like 300 kilometers. What's important for people to understand, though, is over time, the S-200's kind of uniqueness and its mission changed to be able to target a lot of these high-value airborne assets, right? These HAVAs. So whether you were an E-3 AWACS or an RC-135 Rachoń or an EC-130H Compass Call or even a KC-135 tanker, all these airplanes that kind of fly in the back, if you will, the back of the airspace, the protected airspace, being able to reach out and shoot down one of these large airplanes significantly impacted the way in which the United States and the West would conduct warfare. Imagine if you're an F-16 unit, like a four-ship of F-16s, you need airborne fuel, right? An F-16 doesn't have a lot of fuel when it takes off, right? And when it does take off, it burns a lot of it to get in the air. And its intent is to find a KC-135 or a KC-10 tanker, refuel in the air, and then go fight in combat. if that tanker was shot down, you've just made that 4 ship of F-16s incapable. They have to go back home and land because they just don't have enough gas to perform the mission. Significant impact, right?
Yeah, it's not that you can just stop at the closest, at the first petrol station and refuel as if you were traveling through the highway for your vacation. That's actually very interesting because I understand that also the tactics or the war fighting procedures from the perspective of both the attacking side and the side that it's defending in a particular mission on a particular theater has to take it into account. Jeff, thanks for this very interesting insight, because those information are trending right now on the Western infosphere. The Su-34 is a trending topic today. So great to have your expertise on this. My final question: we are also in the middle of discussion, political discussion in a way, or geopolitical discussion, more like, about the possible presence of NATO troops on ground in Ukraine. It's very hard to distinguish which parts of the debate are only these info campaigns, because there are not too many official information about it. But based on the number of official claims of different NATO politicians, there is something that those people are discussing right now about the possibility of sending some part of troops, of Western troops to Ukraine. Do you assess it? Do you think that it is somehow related to the F-16 deployment which is expected? Or what do you make of it as a man who spent years in the military watching this kind of debates?
Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of discussion going on around this, and you're actually starting to see some world leaders disagree, if you will, right? They're basically saying they're making conflicting statements. And I'll tell you, I think that this is more of a function of where Ukraine is militarily and strategically, because I think their ground game is really suffering. They need aid, they need more munitions, they need more weapons, they could use more people. I don't see NATO forces going. I think terminology matters, right? I don't see the North Atlantic Council coming forward and basically committing from a NATO construct, committing NATO forces into Ukraine. However, I think that when you look at how serious the Baltics are, how serious Finland and Sweden is, how serious Poland is, minus their farmers, right? Because I think that's really a travesty, and hopefully Polish government can kind of turn that around. I think bilaterally you have a potential to see this happen more, because those are the nations, right, that face the near abroad threat, right? Russia's on their border, right? Or on the Ukraine border, and those nations do feel it far more than Germany or Spain or France. So I think that there's greater opportunity there for a potential, but I don't know. I don't know if I've seen enough to bring forward this notion that someone's willing to truly enter the war. Who knows? If Belarus enters the war, that may change the calculus. If Transnistria truly does actually seek to annex itself to Russia, Moldova might just say, okay, that's it. That's the final straw, right? There's a lot of geopolitical stuff to be played here as this war reaches a very critical point. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. I think that we are in a critical point for Ukraine. They're not done, right? This war isn't over, but they definitely need help.
Jeff, thanks a lot for your views, for your expertise, and from your perspective. Jeff in Austria, you can find him on Twitter. We are waiting for your next book. As we promised last time, the moment it's available, we're gonna report it, and we're gonna talk about it on our program. You can find Jeff on Twitter and share your views with our guest. Jeff, thank you very much. Hope we're gonna see again soon and discuss all the information from the ongoing war against the West.
Thanks. Appreciate the plug for the book, and it's always great to be on your show. You can have me back anytime you want.
Jeff, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. You can join us on rachon.com. That's our website. That's our Substack. You can leave us your email. We will get back to you with the reports about all the information, the interesting information, at least according to our crew, about the ongoing war against the West as we try to report everything interesting on those front lines. Stay with Telewizja Republika. See you soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye.